Hi, Steve Sander here. I'm sitting home on a night off, and I just had a string of gigs, 4 nights on Mackinac Island, and I got to meet a lot of nice people, musicians. The young kids that are up there are phenomenal, and just really as nice as can be. And I found myself telling stories about some of my gigs that I played before these guys were born. So I thought I'd just tell you about some of my early gigs when I was younger and first starting out. I mean, I could probably talk for an hour about this, but I'll try to keep it short. My first gig was that I got paid for was when I was 14 years old with a junior high school band called the Mad Hatters. And I remember the date, May 4th, 1963, because we had this date in our minds for months in advance, and we were anticipating it so much, and rehearsing it so much. We were just beside ourselves. And we ended up playing the concert where my dad was a conductor for a barbershop chorus, and they needed a band for the intermission. And we played 4 or 5 songs, and they paid us $2 a piece and gave us a recording of our performance, and I still have that today. So that was my first gig. Before that, I played with my dad in a concert, I remember, on a stage in a school auditorium with a grade school friend of mine playing drums, whose name was Ted Eckhart. And we used to play on the playground in grade school. We were really young, and I would play trumpet and he would play drums, and we would just play songs that we knew that were some pop songs and some marches from the band repertoire, the school band. Then after I played with the Mad Hatters, we did a few gigs. I played with a high school, wasn't a class, he was upperclassman to me, a little older than me, and he had a car. That was Jack Neff, and he was a fantastic musician. He had a great style, and we played a lot of private parties around the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and worked pretty constantly, if I remember. And then when he graduated from high school, I had my own trio, and we played a lot of parties around Barrington Hills, Crystal Lake, Woodstock, Bull Valley, and these gigs would be considered very good gigs to me now. I was pretty lucky at the time to play these kind of gigs. Then when I left high school, I went to Berklee School of Music for a summer, and that's when I met Michael Brecker, and he was a classmate of mine about my age, and he was a natural band leader. He put a little band together, asked me to play trumpet with him, and we played a very memorable night at a club on Boylston Street called the Unicorn, and we had a bunch of us Berklee students playing, and we did some of the jazz repertoire like Watermelon Man and Milestones, and Michael Brecker particularly tore the place up, and we had a great response from the audience on that gig. It was really a life changer in a way, because it was just such an emotional high. And then while I was at Berklee, they called the dorm, I think, and wanted to put a band together for Inez and Charlie Fox, who were an R&B duo. I think they were husband and wife, and they were the ones who sang Mockingbird, the original version, and later on, of course, James Taylor did it with Carly Simon. And oddly enough, they needed a bass player, and I played bass at the time, or I was interested in learning bass. I had played bass on some gigs in high school. So I played bass with Inez and Charlie Fox, and Charlie Fox was not happy with the band at all. We were mostly white guys. I think the sax player was black, but we didn't have the soul that he wanted, and he gave us a little lecture during the intermission. He said, but there's one exception, and that's the bass player. You really sounded good, except I know that your instrument probably isn't bass, is it now? And I go, well, no. So he gave me a compliment, sort of a backhanded way. And then, let's see, also while I was at Berklee, there was a blues band playing at that same club, the Unicorn, called the J. Giles Blues Band. Of course, this was the predecessor to the J. Giles Band. And they had Magic Dick on harmonica, who was phenomenal, and he was the show stealer. And J. Giles asked me to go on the road with him, and I said no. I was already planning to go to University of Illinois, which I did, and played in their fantastic jazz band for a while. Well, that's a couple of my early gigs. Later on, in a future video, I'm going to tell you about two of the greatest gigs that I ever played. Were both at the same club, years apart, at the Baker's Keyboard Lounge in Detroit on Livernois and 8 Mile. And the first time I played there was with Marcus Belgrave, who was the legendary trumpet player who played with Ray Charles. He was also in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra, and he also played on all the Motown stuff. He was the staff trumpet player for Motown when they did the Motown hits like ba 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 da da ba, and that was unbelievably packed place because Marcus is such a celebrity in Detroit, and I was honored to play with him. And then later on, I played Baker's Keyboard Lounge for its 75th anniversary with Tony Frank, who was a trumpet player whose hometown is the Detroit area, but he lives in Tucson now. And that was also a high emotional event. And interestingly, the bass player from both gigs was the same, Don Mayberry, who was a legendary bass player in Detroit and a fantastic bass player, very inspiring to play with. So those are a couple of the highlights of my early years in playing gigs. Anyway, that's it. So thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to my stories. If you like my YouTube channel, give me a thumbs up. That helps. And if you're watching on Facebook, please like my Facebook page. That helps too. Thank you.